are you? And Grandpa, are you a millionaire? Louis, not nearly as old as our rainforest here. All trees climb for the sunlight, which shares its energy to sprout seeds and make flowering plants survive. These manufactured chemicals will produce beautiful orchids, cacti, and other flowers. Think even of the cashew nut liquid as an important ingredient in paint that produces fireproofing or preventing rust on the naval ships. Or even a Patagonian fungus will eventually make diesel fuel.
Have beautifully preserved both on the outside, the leaf scars, and then part of what I do is to try to reconstruct the past of flowering plants by looking at their fossils. And here are some of the reproductive structures over here. So these are beautifully preserved. And up here at the top, you see the growing tip of the plant. This is the dome of new cells that were being added and new leaves. And here you see progressively older leaves in this direction. You can look inside on this cut face, and you can see the vascular strand, you can see the leaf traces going out to the leaves, and you can see the fibers.
The rooftop of this rainforest is called a canopy, its trees covering and competing for the sun's rays. The lower forest ground seldom gets the needed energy unless tree falls occur, say from lightning or devastating fire or just dwindling from old age. This underbrush, or understory it's called, displays its own creature survival plays as these ants furiously seek nourishment for their offspring. Beetles are also frequently active reproductively.
Plants, we've grown up with them. We've been around for about 2 million years, depending on when you start the clock ticking, and we've lived in a world of plants. They support us in every way, from food to medicine to clothing, and their beauty refreshes our souls and orients us in a world which without them would be dull and humdrum and uninteresting and not worth living in. Small wonder that they form such a large part of our inspiration for art and that they fill such a necessary place in our lives. We're part of the living world, and plants are one very important way of reminding us of our connection with them. Well, there are a couple of reasons that it's difficult to find new medicines. One is that the human body is very complicated. Trying to prove that any medicine really works is a real nightmare. Aside from the complexity of the processes, it's impossible to experiment in serious ways with human subjects.
For thousands of years, our food was our medicine. Our medicine was our food. And in the last 50, 80 years, we've lost touch with that. We've followed a message in the last 50 years that made things easier for us, but not necessarily better. Take those diseases that we get because we don't eat right and we don't take care of it. We're not responsible for our health. And then we run to a doctor and plead that they give us a pill. And we take that pill not to get healthy, because we tend to stay on those pills until we die.
Even though we know that there's an awful lot of curing going on in the indigenous world from these natural medicines, and even though there should be an even higher premium than we think there is in seeking them out.
As individuals, we've become lazy.
You know that the old sequoia trees lived for over 200 years, and many others help provide our medicines. One early treatment for malaria, for example, came from the bark of this cinchona tree, producing a quinine substance. A willow tree organic compound became salicylic acid or aspirin. A Pacific yew tree bark disclosed the chemical formula that is now a preferred cancer therapy for breast or other malignancies. We must not omit the wisdom of the ancients.
Complementary medicine is an important part of the practice of medicine. There's no question that evolution in over millions of years in developing naturally occurring products is a more effective way to develop drugs. So we have some exciting research programs in the pharmacology department here with Eddie Chu and Tommy Chang.
We've been very actively involved in investigating a very novel Chinese herbal medicine that has been given the name PHY 906.
And this is a focus of Chinese medicine for many, many years, and still today. Today, at Yale, our major focus is to explore a 1800 years old Chinese formula. We are focusing on 3 different cancers.
The goal is to purify substances in herbal remedies and expose them to scientific scrutiny.
The choice of PHY 906 is all started with our hope to decrease the side effects of patients under chemotherapy.
We designed and conducted a clinical trial looking at the effect of this Chinese herbal medicine, PHY 906, in combination with chemotherapy to treat patients with advanced colorectal cancer. Now that we have much more sophisticated methodologies using LC-mass spectrometry, we've been able to show that in fact there are up to 64 individual components that are contained within these 4 main herbs. I think what's fascinating is, and again what's I think highly illustrative of the Eastern concept of Chinese herbal medicine, is that in fact you need all 4 herbs. Each of these individual plants and roots that make up the PHY 906 formulation have distinct biological activities on their own. In general, there's a significant interest in using complementary alternative medicine, and perhaps the highest percentage of use has been in the use of herbal medicine. And so we actually designed a phase 1/phase 2 study looking at PHY 906 in combination with a particular kind of chemotherapy drug called irinotecan, also known as CPT-11, in the treatment of patients with metastatic colorectal cancer.
The quest to find the peppers, the cloves, cinnamon, and other spices that made the non-refrigerated food palatable hastened exploration of the Silk Road, initiating many sailing voyages. Magellan's death did not deter his depleted crew from finally returning with clothes that paid off the trips, despite the inflated cost of spices. Their medical effects range from breath fresheners or making a small penis splendid. Rare manuscripts, such as Marco Polo's description of the world, relating the use of the antispasmodic myrrh with a rare tonic drug, ensuring the earthy medicine and salvation. His prison cell writing which allegedly exaggerated,
This little fern
expanded
specimen
our
was collected by
meager
Charles Darwin
knowledge of
from
nature's
his Forges of
novel
Eagle,
plant
collected in
interactions.
December of 1834.
Foreign trade, extolled by Columbus, expanded by the European Materia Medica by describing diverse native plants as the resin of the mastic tree for diarrhea. Captain Cook observed the benefit of plants and the value of malt or wurst and sauerkraut. This kept his exhausted crew from dying of scurvy. He also increased Europe's awareness of the Hawaiian native use of kava in allaying anxiety. Expedition frenzies were prominent, occurring especially when awareness of vanilla as a product of orchids, even to the point of cutting down tall trees to retrieve the orchids in their high epiphytic dwellings. Carolus Linnaeus, a Swedish physician and the father of the modern taxonomy, lived during the great 18th century expansion of natural history knowledge. Training in botany was part of the medical curriculum, for every doctor had to prepare and prescribe drugs derived from medicinal plants. Linnaeus became the first ecologist to develop principles for defining genera and species of organisms. This classified the plant kingdom. While writing a study of the prevalent diseases, Linnaeus became convinced that all organic organisms reproduce sexually. As a result, he expected each plant to possess male and female sexual organs, stamen, and pistil. This became popular, though certainly not only because of its practicality, but because of the erotic connotations. Linnaeus inspired 17 of his medical students to travel the world. These became his apostles, while several joined Cook's expeditions and brought back important plant collections. The overly zealous desire to cure all things prompted Paracelsus to declare, "The art of healing comes from nature, not from the physician." Many other gifted explorers attempted to overcome the blizzards of the Arctics and Siberia, the unapproachable jungles and deserts of many continents. They all discovered plants that sustained them, as well as the sparsely available quenching water. Laden with hazardous treacheries, large quantities of liquor to lace their meager rations may have quenched the awareness of their thirst. Thereafter, expedition frenzies were prominent, occurring when awareness of vanilla, a product of orchids, prompted cutting down tall trees to retrieve the orchids in their high epiphytic dwellings. Orchid varieties and total innumerable global numbers remain impressive, yet future conservation is often neglected.